the center, so to be off-center. Or I like the name MultiAxis because you're always, the piece has multi-axes that you're turning on. So this is something I came up with. This is not completely original. It's got some of my own little flares that I came up with that I liked. I met a guy named Jim Burrows from our club up in Dayton area. He's a good friend of Jean-Francois Escalon and an admirer, and he introduced me to MultiAxis. I'm taking a class with Escalon in about a week and a half at Aramont. I don't know if there's any seats open left, but if you're excited about it and you want to win this President's Challenge, you might go down there, see if they're open still. So there's a lot of different ways to do MultiAxis. The most simplest way is just do it between centers. Between centers, you just take the piece of wood, mount it, turn something, move this one, move that one maybe, tilt it, turn again, turn something, and you'll see a lot of demos done that way. Very difficult to do that with something this intricate. So if you're turning something like this, where you've got some of these really small connections in here and these little joints, you need to have something holding the wood, and it needs to be a chuck. So I purchased a chuck. I'm going to go over here now real fast, Jamie. This is Escalon's latest chuck. He has had several different versions. What a chuck gets you is the ability to mount the wood and then either shift the wood or tilt the wood, or do both a shift and a tilt of the wood. And you'll see more of what I'm talking about when I actually do the piece. This one is pretty elaborate. It has everything you'd want. It has a tilt in here. You can set this to any angle that you want. The wood is mounted in here. This is a faceplate hold. So I've got a faceplate I can put on that, and I can swivel that all around. There's also a cup chuck that can go in here, which is basically just pounding the wood into a cylindrical thing. So which is kind of hard to use, to get used to. You got to get a nice fit. And if the wood's a little bit green, it will shrink. So you got to be careful you don't walk away from it and come back too much longer. You can put a little spit on the back side to keep the wood swelled up. This one has a couple of screws here that shift. So it shifts 3 centimeters, metric of course. It comes out of Australia. It is expensive. I did a demo with this in Cincinnati a couple of years ago, and I told everybody how much it cost, and it was after lunch, and about half the people walked out. Half the people are. So I told myself I'm not going to do a demo on this particular chuck. Ironically, I looked on your website before I showed up, and whoever put it on the website, the link that he had was to that demo, which was with this chuck. So I'm not doing that one. It's similar though in nature. It was an egg box that I had done, and I wouldn't have that much time anyway.
All right, you can tell us how much it cost you.
Oh, sorry, yeah, yes. I think the base was like $550. This was like maybe 3 years ago, 2 years ago.
Wow.
$550 for the base. When you add the ball and the stuff, I think it's close to $800.
Well,
when
I'm
I
sure
bought
my
everything.
husband doesn't want to do it then.
Yeah. No, but I'm going to show you how to do it without that. Okay, that's the thing. I don't want to scare anybody out of this. This is still a lot of fun. It's just, if you really want to do some really intricate, crazy stuff, you know, it's worth it to buy the chuck. Just like buying a lathe is expensive. Every tool is, you know, it's just an excuse to buy another tool.
It's the Mark III.
Yeah, it's made by Vicmark now. You can still find some of Escalon's older versions which either do a shift or a tilt, but I don't think any of the other ones did both a shift and a tilt. This is the cup attachment, by the way. It's just a ring. You pop that in there. This is obviously the wood is dried a little bit, and now it is very loose, so I couldn't use that anymore. I will mention that this thing is dangerous. It broke the hand of some lady at Aramont a couple of years ago. You have to make certain, you have to get yourself in a mode where before you ever turn the motor on, you tighten. Talk about.
Notice he said turn real fast and it comes off.
Yeah, I want to get the turning quickly. Right. I roughed this out before the class because I know we don't have a whole lot of time. I can usually get through this. I did it in about a little over an hour. So we don't have that much time, and I want to give you guys time to talk. So when we're about halfway through, we'll take a break, do the show and tell. And if I don't get through the rest of it, you'll get the idea anyway. I rounded this out, but you'll notice I did not completely round it out. I left some rough spots on there. You don't really need to perfectly make this perfectly round. So if you look up here, I drew this little square here. If I was to turn this perfectly round, and you get the circle here, and then I wanted to move this axis to here, suddenly I would have to make, in order to get the piece of wood without having any rough edges, that's as big of a circle as I could make. So to use more of the wood, who cares if there's a little bit of a rough edge here? You can move your axis out here to the corner and use more of the wood then. I do like to take the corners off because having the corners whirling around next to my fingers is intimidating. It's intimidating enough when the wood is whirling around off center, I suppose. But with the sharp corners, I don't like it. So I round off the corners as much as I can. Other thing that's important